Hello, and welcome to this three-part series on your 5 years to freedom. I'll be your host for the series. My name is Jerry Garcia. I'll give you a little bit of background about myself. I'm from Denver, Colorado. I live here with my fiance and our 3 children. Here in Denver, Colorado, grew up here pretty much my whole life. Most recently worked as a mortgage broker, and prior to that worked as a poker dealer at a casino before getting into the business I'm in now, which is acquiring small businesses. Also host a podcast called Blue Collar Wealth Club, where we focus primarily on teaching small business owners, in particular blue collar business owners, how to operate their businesses more efficiently, scale them for sale, and how to turn that success and that income into long-standing wealth and cash flow. So that's a little bit of background on myself. I also host that podcast with my fiance. Her name is Sheena White, and soon to be Sheena Garcia. So that's a little bit about me. Wanted to just kind of talk about what we're going to cover in this 3-part series. It's called 5 Years to Freedom. So what does that mean exactly? When we're talking about freedom in this sense, we're talking about financial freedom. So we're not talking about freedom from bills, right? We're not talking about being completely debt-free, completely bill-free. That's not what we're discussing. What we're discussing instead is the opportunity to have your bills continue to be paid, whether you decide to continue working or not. If you take 2 months off on a vacation, if you are incapacitated for any period of time, if you just decide to kind of hang things up, that your bills continue to be paid. That is financial freedom. I think most people may think of financial freedom being having this large pile of money, where you've saved all your life, have built this big nest egg, and now you can just live off of that for the rest of your life. What I'm talking about is a little more secure in my eyes. It's the idea that bills continue to be paid because income is still coming in regardless of whether you work or not. So that's what we're going to discuss, and we're going to kind of dig into that over 3 parts. So let's kind of get into that. We talk about this feeling of financial freedom, and we know that most people spend their entire lives building toward that. So how can we possibly discuss getting there in just 5 years, right? And the way we can do that is by kind of taking the traditional model of working, taking a portion of your income and putting it away, and just letting that build up over time, and hopefully that it does well in the market so that it compounds on itself, and like I said, having that big nest egg at the end of your working career and being able to live off of that for the rest of your life. We're going to kind of turn that on its head a little bit, because we're not going to talk about specifically just putting money away. We're going to talk about different ways to, first of all, create a business that works more efficiently so that it's actually growing and scaling and building you wealth while it's bringing in cash flow, and then taking that wealth and then plugging it somewhere where not only is it like building, but it's actually making you money. So we'll dig into all of it. It's going to be, not too long of a series, but it's going to be pretty life-changing for anybody who takes it seriously and takes these steps. So I'll start out by saying that this series is meant primarily for those who have an established business. Now, if you don't have that yet, doesn't mean you shouldn't listen. It just means that you're going to have to take some steps before you reach the level that I'm talking about right now. Because primarily what we're going to teach is, hey, you have a business. What do we do next? How do we take that business and build it into something that gets us that financial freedom? So it doesn't mean you should stop listening. Just means that, hey, if you have to start a business, or if you're early in your career and you've just started the business, you may have to get there a little further before you can implement some of these strategies, but that's okay. It just means that you're gonna, it's gonna take a little bit more time. Doesn't mean that it's not useful information. So let's dig into what we're gonna talk about on this first part. And this first part, what we're gonna discuss is mindset. Now, mindset is something that's hugely important, but I know is an instant turnoff for most blue-collar business owners, because I think mindset is used too often when we're talking about feel and believing in yourself and knowing you can make more money. That's not what I'm talking about in this case. We're talking about something very tangible, something that is in your mind and something that does need to shift in your mind, but it's a lot more implementable than just believing in yourself. Now, that's important too. You need to know that you can do this, and there's going to be times when you question yourself All of that's important, but that is not what we're talking about. We're talking about a mindset shift with your role in your business. So one of the best books that explains this is called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. E-Myth stands for Entrepreneurial Myth, and the way that they go into this book, it's a great book. If you haven't read it, you should absolutely read it. Every business owner should read it. But they talk about people in 3 different categories, talking about entrepreneurs, managers, and technicians. So let's give those a little bit of clarity on what they mean. An entrepreneur is somebody who kind of sees the opportunity in everything, always has kind of a far-reaching thought process in what they're going to do and how that's going to improve their business, and they tend to be a little more creative. Managers are pretty much like they sound. Maybe not all of them. We've all had bad managers and people who took more of the power than the actual job role seriously. But manager in this case is somebody who likes order, who likes things to be stable and consistent. So they're big on systems. Very important for a business as well. And then the third is the technician. The technician is the person who does the work. They're the ones out there doing the actual work that provides the service or product that you sell. So those are the 3 roles from the book, and we can kind of get into why this is important and how it makes sense for you as a business owner. So first part, E-Myth. The E-Myth is that most businesses are not started by entrepreneurs. Seems counterintuitive. An entrepreneur, it's literally just somebody who runs a business, right? So it doesn't seem to make sense on the surface that a business would not be started by an entrepreneur. And I find this especially to be true in blue-collar work. Most businesses are started by technicians. They get what's kind of referred to as this entrepreneurial seizure, where they have this moment of clarity when they're doing a job working for somebody else. They know the work, they know the technique, they have the skill, and they have the tools usually to do this work, and they know it, and they reach a point where they it kind of clicks to them. Hey, I can have more time, I can have more money, I can have more freedom if I stop working for this guy and start doing the work for myself. And so that's usually where this starts, whether that's brought on by being passed up for a promotion or just not necessarily liking your boss. Whatever the case is, that's usually how, like I said, especially blue-collar businesses start. Everyone that I know pretty much has almost always started that way. So here's where you get into the fatal assumption. Now, the fatal assumption is that if I understand how to do the technical work of my business, then I understand a business that does technical work. And I can speak to this from the mortgage perspective. I worked for a time on an account where we were the primary lender for a large builder. Right, so me and my team were handed these leads where we were just close loans, and maybe we didn't make as much per deal, but they were being fed to us. And then at a certain point, that account went away, and I figured, no, this will be fine. I'm great at my job. I know the technical side of how to do this very well. I'll just go out there and get business, and it'll be easy to get business because I'm really good at my job. I'm better than 95% of loan officers out there, which I believed to be true. But I found out the hard way that is not enough to earn business, and so that's where one of the biggest mistakes is made with somebody starting a business, is thinking that just because they know the work, that they understand the business side of it. Now, in the book, The E-Myth Revisited, this is all told through the story of this girl named Sarah who's a baker. Same type of thing. She got this recipe from her grandma. She loved baking pies, so she decided to start her own pie shop. And people loved them. They did great. Food was great, like rave reviews, which just made her business continue to grow. Over time, the business gets busier and busier, and so she's constantly having to work longer hours, work harder, work more, to the point where she has to hire somebody. She brings somebody on who can kind of do some of the cashier work, bookkeeping work, help with all of that, and things are going great, right? that manager's in there just kind of taking care of the business side of things, and Sarah just continues baking the cakes. But 6 months pass, and all of a sudden she's still kind of struggling with things, and then the worst possible thing happens, and her manager quits. Turns out that she was not treating the manager as well as she should have. The manager felt like she was doing all the work, and Sarah was just baking the pies and collecting all the money. So you'll see a lot of parallels within your business, depending on how long you've had it, and maybe you've already passed some of these hurdles. Maybe you haven't reached these hurdles. Maybe as you're growing, you're just getting ready to make that first hire. But the story is important because in the story, Sarah is revisited by her friend who is kind of giving her guidance on how to run this business, and he is then able to point out to her that there has to be a mindset shift. You can't be the technician, you can't be the manager, you can't be everything all at once. Now the challenge is, with many businesses, you start off as a solopreneur where you're just one person and you do have to wear all those hats. The key is, as you grow, learning to hire the right people for the right positions. Now you have to think of yourself less like the guy who knows how to, whether it's pull dents out of cars, whether it's landscape design, or whether it's, HVAC installation. Regardless of what that is, you have to be able to see yourself as the entrepreneur. You have to be that business owner. You're the one who runs this business. You have to have the business in mind always. And that means that not spending your time on the technical side of things is going to be best for your business in the long run, because nobody's going to care about your business as much as you do. So you do have to make that shift where at a certain point you need to make yourself irrelevant inside that business. And that's a very hard thing to do, because for most people their business is their baby. You need to get yourself to a point by hiring the right manager, hiring the right technicians underneath that manager, putting the right systems in place, coming up with the correct strategies, so that if you take a week off, the team doesn't miss a beat. Now, you don't want to just let the business fly and do nothing. I mean, you want to stay in touch with that business and kind of have an idea of what's going on, so that you can pivot and come up with more plans on how to grow, how to scale, how do we reach that next level, how do we reach that next milestone. But really, this is the key. Making that shift in what your role is in that business, from I need to do everything myself because I know it best, to I need to put the right people in place so that my business can run like a well-oiled machine. That's going to be the very first and most important step to getting to that 5 years of freedom. So if you haven't reached that point yet, or if you're getting to that point, these are the things you need to start thinking about. And you can get help. You may do this yourself. You may have done a lot of trial and error to get past these hurdles. If you haven't yet, there's people. My fiance, for example, is a fractional CFO whose entire role is helping small businesses to reach those milestones and to scale efficiently. There's CPAs. Some CPAs have the training to be able to help with that. Point being, there are people out there who can help you if you need some kind of consulting or guidance along the way. But step one, probably the most important step, because it's really impossible to have freedom if you can't get yourself above the business, so that you're working on long-term, working on the business rather than in the business. So we'll talk more about the next steps, but that is step number one. Get that business running like a well-oiled machine, and that will be the key to getting yourself to that next level. If you want to learn more about this or talk more about it, feel free to reach out anytime, and I will catch you in part 2.